Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. And today we're going to be talking about how much this cold air, how long is this cold air going to last? So, Winter Storm Caleb has moved along, it is far gone, and it has brought these really cold temperatures. This Arctic blast 3,000 miles away, so the North Pole brought this cold air 3,000 miles all the way to the eastern United States, and we have saw over 300 plus records broken when it comes to this really cold air from this huge Arctic blast. I know it was in the teens here this morning, and it's struggling to even get into the upper 30s here. And tonight it's also going to get back into the teens, and we should get around 40 tomorrow. So it's pretty cold here. Not as cold as some people in those single digits, but it is pretty cold here, especially for the southeast. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get into it. I'm using a GEFS once again, which is an ensemble model. It is about 20 runs of the GFS models, and I did want to show that because usually, the one GFS model some people do show, and I do show a lot of times for my precipitation, can sometimes be a little, because it can be a little off sometimes because it's only one model, but this is 20 models all averaged together, which is something really good to see. And it gives you really reliable information. So you can see right now we do have these colder temperatures for the east, warmer for the west. You can see tomorrow, nothing different. Into Friday, we have nothing different. Also into this weekend, still colder across the east, warmer across the west. Really doing that until early next week. And you can kind of see on your Tuesday how this warmer air is trying to come in and invade the eastern United States and bring in some warmer air. Now, you can see how the terrible cold air kind of moves out, and it gets a little bit less below average. Now, we're still going to be below average, but not as below average. But you can see your Wednesday, it's still pretty cold. Into next Thursday, still okay cold, slightly below average. But you can see how we get some of this warmer air to come up from the southwest, and we do get some relief, maybe across parts of the southeast, moving into regions of the mid-Atlantic, even into parts of the Ohio Valley, the Tennessee River Valley. You can see that. Still warmer across the west, but you can see right here the upper Midwest, also into the northeast, still pretty below average, not too terrible. And you can see right along the east coast, just right along that coast, we just do have those slightly below average temperatures around, but we do have some relief moving in late next week for some people across the south central United States, the Ohio and Tennessee River valleys, maybe parts of mid-Atlantic, parts of the southeast. But you can see that does remain throughout your Friday, getting into most of the southeast, and then by your Saturday next week. So this is next weekend. You can see this cold air really just start to come back in, and this warmer air does get pulled southeast. Then it will move out, and we would get these colder temperatures to start moving back in again. And you can see how across the west we're still pretty warm, and then across the east we're below average. And you can see this is your 24th. So this is next Sunday. You can see we have these colder temperatures through a lot of the east coast, getting into the upper Midwest, the Midwest, the south central United States. So much of the country except for the west below average. And you can see same thing through the 25th, through the 26th. Through the 27th, and then on to your Thanksgiving, you can see we are below average. Highs could be in the 20s and the teens in some of the upper Midwest, and then 30s and 40s for much of these regions through here. Even some 20s I was looking at earlier up here. And then across over here we have some 60s and then 70s down into southern Florida. So pretty cold Thanksgiving for many people. Now across the west, it still won't be that warm. This is just above average. We're not saying it's going to be hot, because if you're in these mountainous regions, maybe your average is around 20 right now. Maybe upper 20s is your high in some of those highest peaks. And it says you're about, let's say, 4 degrees above average. That's only going to take you up to 33. So it's just kind of the perspective. It depends on what your average is. So maybe if you're a little lower, average high is in the 50s, maybe 54, it'd be 58. So that's what you have to think about. Now down here across California, it does show we probably in around the 60s and 70s, just like the southeast would be. So that is the only warm area really across the west I was looking at. Other than that, we have some below average temperatures across parts of the southwest. And then just around these regions, maybe in parts of the northwest, we do have these above average. But once again, does not mean we're going to be hot. just means we could be a few degrees above average, which in these areas is usually pretty cold anyway. So I'm just going to go ahead and say you still could be pretty cold across there. So much of the U.S. for your Thanksgiving could be pretty cold, and you can see those high temperatures maybe getting a little warmer for parts of the West, but still won't be too above average, which is something we are looking at right now. We're still going to have to be watching it, but you can see the North getting to the Mid-Atlantic, parts of the Southeast, Ohio Valley, Midwest, still pretty cooler than average, and some of these regions warmer than average, but still nothing too outrageous. You can see some of the highs in the West over here. You can see 50s, maybe 60s in those yellow, getting into those more yellow regions. And then over here, we're still in the 20s and 30s, maybe even 40s along the coast of Oregon and Washington, it shows. So still not really hot, but just a little warmer than usual, just a little unusual. Now, if we were to keep looking, you can see on the 29th, we still have this colder air around for many people, so not expecting anything of a difference. Maybe a little bit of relief late next week for some people across the Mid-Atlantic, Southeast, Ohio Valley, Tennessee, River Valley, moving into the South Central United States. But not much relief for the people in the North, as we were looking at earlier. And across the West will be warmer than average most of this November, and you can just see it. It's going to be pretty brutal with the cold for many people. Maybe getting into late next week, getting a little bit of relief, but not for long until next weekend we get this colder air to come back in, and then by late November we're still below average. So definitely something to keep our eye on. We'll have to see if the forecasts change. But right now it does look like those colder temperatures from the GEFS model and from many other models saying that we should remain below average for much of our November. Maybe a little bit of relief late next week, but it'll come back late November towards your Thanksgiving. Now you can see here is NOAA's 6 to 10 day outlook. It has colder across the east, cooler than average there, and then across the west we have these warmer than average temperatures. You can see in these white areas we don't have anything. This could mean equal chances, or it could just mean you're going to be normal, but in some cases it could mean it's kind of a toss-up. We'll have to see. So maybe across some of these regions you could be below average. Maybe the little bit more west you go, you'll be normal. And up here, I do expect the Northeast to go into those below average conditions. I do expect much of these regions to be in those below average. I really don't know why they aren't, but that's just my forecast. I'm going to add to this. Now, this is NOAA's forecast. They are always pretty accurate, but you can't always trust them. They are a little bit biased toward the warmer weather a lot of times. But if you're anywhere across the east, just expect colder than average for the next 6 to 10 days. And once again, late next week we have a little bit of warmer air moving in, but still be pretty cold for many of the Northeast, Great Lakes. But maybe for the Ohio and Tennessee River Valleys, Mid-Atlantic, Southeast, South Central United States, parts of the Midwest, we had a little bit of warming up. But then it comes back late November, which you kind of do see here, how we don't really keep any of those. We keep most of those warmer temperatures to the south or to the west, and then we keep a lot of these equal chances, which could mean in the most biggest chance will be below average. But even if this was for normal conditions, it doesn't have us above average, which is something you definitely have to look at. So we keep all these above average temperatures to the west, and we keep these below average temperatures to the east throughout the rest of your November, as you did see over here earlier. We should be, we'll be pretty below average for much of November, which some people do like, some people don't. But it's looking like for many people, if you are across a lot of the east, especially the Great Lakes and the Northeast, you're going to remain pretty cold. Even the upper Midwest is where we could see our coldest temperatures. But yeah, guys, I hope y'all did enjoy today's video. If you did, consider subscribing. I'll have more updates on this, and a Thanksgiving forecast will come out later on, maybe sometime later on next week, or if we were to look at the calendar, you can see Thanksgiving's on the 28th this year. So probably sometime 2 weeks from now we will have a Thanksgiving forecast, maybe an early look next week, but we'll have to see. But yeah, guys, I will see you guys in the next video. Consider subscribing or leaving a like down below if you did enjoy, and I will see you guys in the next video. Have a great day.